Here's the first look at the Fiveray V60. Okay, so today we're taking a look at the Fiveray V60 LED light wand combo. So you'll be able to know that it actually comes with its own carry case right here. Let's first take a look at the quality of the case itself. So what we got is it's a fairly thick sort of fabric. It's a nice light grey colour, which means it's not something you're going to lose in the dark really. It's quite standout and sharp. Got a little section here for your name tags and stuff. The case itself is actually padded all the way through. It doesn't, on the top here it's a tiny bit cushioned, but everywhere else it's very hard like cardboard. And the handle here is like a bit of an air mesh that's got going on here, so if you have sweaty palms, mom spaghetti, that's a bit nice as well, you know, have some dry hands when carrying this baby around. Okay, so what we have here, of course, is the wand, which I guess we'll all be expecting to have. But first, let's break down into the smaller bits here. So we've got our obligatory delicious looking packet of silica gel. Let's get rid of that. You have your service cards. You have your quick start guide here, which typical to ZHIYUN, or ZHIYUN, sorry, I kind of butchered that, but typical to these guys. It's a very clearly easy to follow sort of manual, and you've got your QR codes here, which will help you give a bit of a quick start guide, a bit of a manual. What is this? It's the Book of Many Languages, which we always get in these sort of fins. 20 different languages that we'll never really look at. That's a tree died for that, but you know, who cares? All right, then we've got whatever this is. Let's find out. Now, this looks like a strap, but as we already established, there isn't actually a strap component to this bag. Let's see. This is, yeah, don't know what that is to be honest, but appears to be a bit of a cage, but you know what? I'm still opening this up. I think I'll find out what it is later in the video. So let's look at what else is in here. We've got a little manual here that's actually telling us what this is. And yeah, it appears to be a little cage or mesh for the light. So that's actually kind of nice. Like typically you've got to buy that as like a separate component on most lights. It's a lot rounder and larger, but with this, it comes with its own custom fit one. So we got a mysterious little bag here with a lot of holes in it. So I guess that's to carry up smaller little pieces of equipment, but doesn't feel like it's cheap. Like I'm giving a good hard tear. It seems to be staying together. So like, even though it's got a lot of holes in it, particularly this big one here, it still seems fairly sturdy. So what else have we got? Okay, so we have this little cord. This is, you'd hope they'd have cords with this stuff. All right, so we have a USB-C to USB-A port here. So I'm going to assume that this sort of connects in that sort of capacity. And it's about 80 centimeters long. It's a fairly long sort of cable. It's nothing too short, which is good. I personally like the longer cables the better, but you know, this is a good length. Okay, so we have in here, my favorite thing in the world when it comes to lighting, the diffusion sheet. So this is going to be nice. I personally never like throwing light directly onto a subject, so it's going to be good to sort of diffuse it a bit. And naturally, like the cage here, it's another sort of custom fit sort of build, so that's great. Don't know how many stops this is, but it seems to be a fairly thin sort of diffusion, but we'll test it out today and see how effective it is. So now let's get into the bigger stuff. So we've got our cord here, which is pretty standard. Got the adapter and the main big cheese of all the thing, the wand itself. And this is pretty Star Wars looking, I'll be honest with you. I was not expecting this. I actually kind of like the design. It's all like futuristic. You got this white sort of finish with a bits of orange to accentuate stuff. It's really going to stand out on your sets, to be honest. But what do we have? So we have the dimmer here. Next to that, the CCT setting on the another dial. So this isn't going to be like some lights where you have to press the same button to do the same thing. It's actually a lot more quicker to adjust there. Just turned it on now, single press, then long press. So it's got its little windows here, and it actually has a reflective surface on the inside of the window here. I'll just turn that down off completely. So as you can see, it's got a reflective surface on the inside of the windows here. So that's really going to bounce and be very intense for you guys. When I flick it on, these are going to be the fans, of course, that will sort of start to cool it, but these aren't really operating right now. I'm going to blast this up all the way up. It does have a little screw port here, so I'm just going to try something out here for a second. Okay, so I'm just going to screw that in. Hey, look at that, it fits. So that's nice and neat. I should be able to stand that upright, have it no problem. And that should also be able to basically be screwed on any of your standard light stands. So that's nice. I mean, it's a very short sort of light, so probably do want to mount it. Now that's off, we're going to see what sort of modes this light has. So we'll hold this there. So we've got FX, SOS. Oh, that's cool. So what we have here is you can actually use the CCT dial to scroll through the various FX functions. So what you do first is you hold down the dim button, and to enter the special effects, you hold it down again, and you enter the FX set. Let me do that again. You enter the FX section, and from there you can scroll through using the CCT dial. It gives you the TV light, and we'll showcase these a bit more in detail in the video, but for now we'll just go for here. You got the bulb, the flickering bulb, candle, it's a very warm one. Lightning, which is probably going to give some of you a bit of an epilepsy thing, so I'll put a warning about that. Fire, we've got flames, that's nice. SOS, so I'm going to assume that's basically the sort of like alarms or something. And next to the on button here, we have a little button called max. This is, I'm going to assume, the max mode, which is very similar to the Mollis G200. It should be an option to basically make this light shoot that much brighter, which means this light is going to run a lot hotter. So these fans are probably going to start kicking once that starts to happen. So we're just going to flick it on here. That's one press. All right, it's giving me an indication that I need to actually plug this light in. So unfortunately, I can't do a max mode handheld on this, although it probably would be running pretty damn hot if it was in max mode. So, and we have this little orange fin here. I'm not really sure what that does outside of being a nice aesthetic, but very futuristic looking light we've got here. I honestly really do like the design. It's pretty damn cool. And on the side here, we've got a USB-C port and the standard port to plug this light directly in for charging. And it seems to be both of them are giving you the option to actually charge. So you don't necessarily, for whatever reason, lose this baby right here. You can still charge by the USB-C port. So this is the Fiveray V60. It's an LED tube light. It weighs roughly 800 grams. It's a very lightweight sort of light. The idea of this light is you can sort of just move it around easily, angle in all sorts of interesting ways, get really playful with the lighting. It's generally a light you use for more narrow spaces, such as cars or just very small rooms, so it's useful for that. In terms of the quality of the light, the lumens on this light is 1,730 lumens with a wattage of 60 watts. The CRI rating on this is 96, so it's a very clean and very high quality sort of light that you're getting here. The temperature range of this light ranges from 2700K to 6500K. So it can go very warm like so, or it can go very cool. So something else I found with this light though, of course, is you have the two little dials here. You have one dial for the CCT, the temperature, and another dial for the dim. Currently, I have the dial set to 100% at 5500 Kelvin, but if I click the dim dial, I can go from 100 to 0, 50, and back to 100 again. The dials, I will say, is it's not a 360 sort of dial, so you can't roll from 100% and then roll forward and go back to 0%. You do have to sort of roll all the way through, all the way back until you get back to 0. And I'm still rolling the dial forward and it's still at 0. So I bring it back here and goes like that. So that's why you sort of want to make use of the whole clicking the button here, as it will sort of get you to the general sort of checkpoints in lighting that you want for that quick setup. The temperature dial works in very much the same way, where if I press this button, I go up to 6500 Kelvin, all the way down to 2700 Kelvin on the next press, and then back to 5500 Kelvin. Also, this light is like 800 grams, but because the weight's sort of very evenly dispersed, it's not all that heavy, honestly. I've been holding it upright for like the past 10 minutes now, and it's, you know, it's quite actually easy. And the fact it's got this sort of rough rubber grip here makes it very easy to hold on to. It's not getting clammy or feeling like it's going to slip out of my hands. You can, of course, actually screw it to a light stand or a C-stand if you want to sort of hold it up. But generally, it's not that hard to really hold it upright. It's quite comfy, really. In terms of the fans, which you might notice on the back here, these fans don't initially sort of kick in, but if you hold the light and operate for long enough, eventually the fans will start to kick in. And they're honestly very quiet, like I can barely hear them. So I don't know if you can hear that, but you know, it's a very sort of quiet sound, which is great. That's what you want. I will say that while this light does sort of come out of the box charged, so with a bit of juice, so you can sort of test it out, see if it works, it does eventually sort of start to lose its battery. So do make sure you fully charge this battery beforehand. In terms of portability, this light can last at full blast at 24 minutes, so a little under half an hour. So I wouldn't necessarily trust this light to stay with you in the middle of nowhere all day. You do want to have it next to somewhere where it can sort of charge and operate. Or if you want to squeeze a little bit more extra time out of it, you can adjust the dim and sort of bring it down so it's not taking as much juice out of the light. But generally, yeah, it's a 24-minute full blast light portably, and you know, plugged in, you know, you can use it all day. And with these fans, it will stay cool throughout the day. I will also say that it does get a bit warm around the handle here, but it's nothing that's really uncomfortable or burning. It's quite a cool light in general. So as we established, this is the combo box, so you do get a few little extra goodies in this set. You have your diffusion sheet here, you have your grid box, and you have the barn door / reflector. So starting with the barn doors here, as I already noted, it has a sort of reflective surface on the inside, so it does double up as a reflector and a barn door set. And it clamps on rather nicely to the light. It's a very sort of hassle-free sort of deal, and you can take it off just as easily. Next up, you have the grid box, which actually fits onto the barn door reflector. And it's, you know, quite a little sturdy bit of build. Does get a bit finicky with these sort of Velcro straps here, but you know, it's a hassle-free sort of deal. One thing that I did find unfortunate though is that when I tried to fit this diffuser over the barn doors or over the grid, it wasn't fitting. This diffuser I got in general basically was just a bit too short. Now I'm going to chalk this up to inexperience, as I'm sure some people had no problem fitting this diffusion sheet over the barn doors, but if you figured it out, please let us know in the comments below. But otherwise, unfortunately, I wasn't able to sort of fit this over the light. It was actually quite a bit of a hassle. So with that said, I did just use a general diffusion sheet and place it in front of the light, and it accomplishes the effect that you're seeing, well, right now. Something else that's cool is if you hold down the dim dial here, you'll actually enter the special effects. So this is your SOS effect. And if you rotate the CCT dial, you can move into the other effects. So what I like about this TV effect on this light in particular, as there are a few lights with this effect, is that with this light in particular, the effect is a lot more erratic. You can notice it a lot more. It's less of a subtle flicker and more of this, well, very sharp flicking in and out. So if you want a light that has that effect, but it's a lot stronger, this is a great light for that. And for all you guys looking for a horror film, you have the fantastic flickering bulb effect. So This is currently at 99%, and you know, it's a great little effect for that bit of subtle, creepy lighting that you got going on. So this is the candle effect, which is basically a warm light with a soft bit of flicker to it. This is generally a setting you want to use if, say, you have a shot of a candle or a flame next to someone's face, but obviously that flame or candle is not going to be bright enough, so you flick it to the candle mode on this light and hold this light just out of shot, and it will fill the light in and hopefully give you that sort of candle look.
Have you got a lighter?
So this is the flame effect, which acts similar to the candle effect. This is generally a setting you would use, say, if you have a campfire or a large sort of flame and you need to light your subject's face. It's not as flickery as I would hope it would be, but for those of you that want a flame light that isn't like, you know, flickering in and out, such as a small campfire, this is probably the light you want to reach for. But as you notice, it does sort of occasionally flicker a bit, so you do have that sense of movement from this light. Now you have the lightning effect, which is pretty much a very even distance between the flashes of the light in here. So basically, I don't really use the lightning mode to actually do lightning effects with this light. What I like to use is the actual mode that's hidden in the CCT dial, which is music mode. And the way you activate music mode is you hold down the CCT dial like so. And there you are. Now basically what music mode is there's a microphone in this light that will sort of listen to any sort of music or sounds and have the light flash in accordance with those sounds or music. So the idea here is that if you use a sort of lightning sound effect and have it go, it will sort of flash in time with this light, like so. So yeah, that's basically how this music mode works. So if you want sort of lighting that accurately follows the flashes and sounds of thunders, what you do is you set this to music mode, place a high quality speaker next to this light, and it will flash in time with the thunderstorm. But I do want to really stress that you need a quality sort of microphone or sound source that this light can listen to, as if you're playing the sound source from something crappy like your phone, it's not going to actually pick up the sound as clearly and it's not going to actually track it clearly. So you want something like a ZHIYUN boom or even just someone making those actual noises next to the light in order to have it accurately follow the flashes and sounds. This light also has a max mode on the side here, this little orange button here. And the idea with this is that this will turn a 60 watt light into a 100 watt light. So it goes from 1,730 lumens to 2,480 lumens. So it squeezes that little bit extra out of the light. The max mode will not work if it's not plugged into the adapter. So unfortunately, you can't use max mode in this sort of portable fashion. You do have to sort of have it plugged in. Okay, so I've currently got the light set up in a way that I would use the light for my reviews on this channel. And in terms of the setup, I have the light about a meter away from me, set to 100% at 5500 Kelvin. The reflectors are on, it's pointed away, it's bouncing against a giant white wall here, so I'm bouncing the light to give myself a bit of a fill here. I'm doing this mainly because I couldn't get the diffuser to sort of fit onto the light, but I still want the light to be a little diffused, a little softer, as when you have it pointed at you, it's actually quite harsh. So now I have a light facing directly at me with a bit of diffusion sheet in front of the light just to help soften it. And well, this is sort of what you're getting right now. But I'm just going to drop the dimmer a bit just to show you how we can make it even more subtle. So this is the lighting now that's a bit diffused, and obviously the point I'm trying to make here is that provided you know how to sort of bounce the light and diffuse the light, and you can work within a very common range of camera settings, in this case being aperture free, shutter speed 148 for the second, and ISO 400, you are able to sort of work with this light and shoot some pretty nice looking close-up and mid shots of your subject. But let's say in this case you want to sort of remove the light from splashing onto your background here. Well, that's what the grid's for. So now I'm going to throw the grid on and show you what it does. Okay, so now we have the grid on, and what this is doing is it's sort of narrowing the light and reducing the sort of spill from the light being generally open. So we have a lot less light on the background, but you still maintain the same level of intensity of the fill light on my face. So that's what you use a grid for. Okay, so now I've got the light back to being on a reflector bouncing against the white wall here. And I'm just going to showcase the max mode on this light. So one of the biggest differences you might notice using the max mode is that the light instantly becomes that much warmer. This is basically because when you switch to the max mode on this light, it does sort of switch the Kelvin from 5500 Kelvin down to 4200 Kelvin. So it's going to be a little bit warmer. You can quickly fix this by simply clicking on the CCT button once, and it will make the light much cleaner at 5500 Kelvin. Okay, so now the color temperature is a lot cleaner, and you can sort of focus on the fact that in max mode, it has actually gotten a little bit brighter, with the lumens going from 1730 lumens at 60 watts to its max mode, which is 2470 lumens at 100 watts. So it is getting a little bit brighter overall, and it's nicer to have, you know, this sort of extra bit of oomph in the light. Unfortunately though, max mode isn't something you can utilize wirelessly with this light. You do have to have it plugged into a wall in order to set it to max mode. And another thing to note about max mode is this will absolutely kick your fans into overdrive in order to keep the light cool. So that's the Fiveray V60. Let us know what you think of the light, and if you have any sort of cool tricks or tips for people who want to use sort of tube lighting, please let us know in the comments below.